Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us back. We are now starting with a session on the GCC, or what we call the Global Capability Center. I'm going to introduce the moderator for today. Mr. S. Sundaram is the Managing Director, South Asia for Lincoln Electric Company. Prior to this, he has held various key positions, such as being the President of Rane Brake Linings, Managing Director, ESAB, Global Director, Operations, ESAB, and President Cosmo Phillips. He also has led a lot of manufacturing organizations, including those with overseas operations for over 20 years. So with this, I hand over the panel to you, Mr. Sundaram, to take this forward.
Thank you, Savita. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session. This session, we hope, is going to be a very engaging one and an important one as well, because we talk about many different things. We talk about the exports that India does. We talk about the growth in the economy and so on. But there is something which is not actually visible, which is happening across the country, across industry, which I think needs to be seen, and that's something which we are going to be seeing here today. What's happening is that as costs increase overseas, as particularly in USA and Europe, as the cost of doing business increases, as the costs of people increase, it becomes more and more difficult for companies to sustain themselves and be competitive. In this environment, what a lot of multinationals do, who have, particularly those who have footprints in countries like ours, is to leverage the capabilities which are here in our country and to be able to use those capabilities for their own head office or any other area that they have. So this is broadly the theme of what we'll be looking at as to, some of these are called global competency centers, some of them are called global capability centers. The differentiation is more in terms of semantics, and it's not a very big differentiation as such. But broadly, you can look at it that a global capability center just provides capability, meaning that there's an accountant doing a job in US, and I have an accountant doing a similar job in India. So that's just one-for-one replacement. The other thing is a global competency center. Now, a competency center is one where we actually have competencies, where you have a center which builds up a particular level of competency, which the rest of the world doesn't have. It's not as simple as just replacing an accountant, but you have a level of competency which the rest of the globe doesn't have. And that's what you then let the rest of the world leverage from your country, which is India. And India has a lot of capabilities, a lot of competencies which are available for countries overseas to leverage. So this is what we'll be broadly talking about. And in this context, where does India figure? What are the advantages? Why should a country set up in India as compared to setting up in, let's say, Philippines? Well, we won't talk about China too much but let's say Philippines, or let's say other countries where, it is Mexico, for example, where it's possible for these countries to set up these kind of services. So where does India figure in all of this? Where does Tamil Nadu figure in all of this? That's something which is what this panel will be discussing. So I will now introduce to you the panel in this order. So we have Mr. V. Mahesh. He's the Director, Manufacturing Operations for NCR Corporation India Private Limited. He is an engineering and management professional with over 20 years of experience. He's also handled the role of Executive Director, Manufacturing Operations of NCR Corporation India. His area of expertise include product development, program management, business continuity planning, new product introduction, engineering change control, material resource planning, manufacturing management, and master scheduling. So welcome Mr. Mahesh to this panel. We then have Mr. V. Vishnu, IAS. He is the MD and CEO of Guidance Tamil Nadu. Currently, he serves as the MD and CEO of Guidance Tamil Nadu, the government of Tamil Nadu's nodal agency for investment promotion and single window facilitation. Prior to heading Guidance, he was the district collector of Tirunelveli district, Tamil Nadu. He has had a storied career spanning over a decade, serving in various key roles in the government of Tamil Nadu and the government of India. Welcome, Mr. Vishnu. Mr. Rajesh Oja is the partner and GICC market segment leader for PricewaterhouseCoopers. Rajesh is passionate about helping business deliver tangible value through leading edge technology and digital solutions to global MNCs operating in India or planning to set up GICs/GCCs in India. He has more than 26 years of professional experience globally across multiple industry verticals. And then finally we have, welcome Mr. Roja. And then finally we have Mr. Nagarajan Sitaraman, who is the head of quality of Babcock Power APAC Private Limited. He has over 34 years of experience in the field of mechanical engineering. He started with project management of boiler plants, later moved on to steel plants followed by quality control and quality assistance, predominantly in quality management for almost 15 years, in which the majority had been in inspection and certification of various static and rotary equipment for the power hydrocarbon sector. So this is the panel that we have assembled before you. And what we'll be discussing is the subject of GCCs and what are GCCs, how do we go forward with them, and how they can help India, and how does Tamil Nadu, how does the Indian government, how does Tamil Nadu government come in to promote GCCs for multinationals in India. Now the format will be this, that this is going to be primarily a panel discussion, and we will also open it to questions from the members of the audience after the basic panel discussion. And that's about it. So welcome everyone, and I look forward to an engaging session. So I will start with each panelist in turn and hear from them what they have to say about. First, I'll start with the experiences of the people who have their own GCC set up, and then we will move on to hearing from each panelist on the GCC capabilities. So first, I'll start with Mr. Mahesh. So, Mr. Mahesh, would you share with us what is your what is the GCC that you are currently having in NCR? What was the logic for setting it up? What is the background? And how you find the experience, and what have been the benefits to the company as a whole? Okay, sort of long question, but you know.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so when I tell people about my company, I tell I'm from NCR. So they ask me, oh, MCR, you make those shirts, those kind of things, no? No, that is not the one. We make ATMs, not MCR, it is NCR. And then I tell, we make ATMs. So then they ask me, oh, you people should be handling a lot of money, right? You should be knowing how to put money and how to take out money, right? No. Yes, we make ATMs, but we make ATMs which are secure. Okay, that's the answer we give. Now, this is an interesting subject, global capability centers, and I was particularly attracted to this subject because I was part of the planning team for the GCC summit in Hyderabad, and that's when I caught on to this fancy term, global capability center. Believe me, until then, I myself was not knowing our company was running a global capability center. Okay, so deciphering this term, global capability center, it's not a very complicated thing or something. Believe me, many of you would be running such processes in your site. For example, from your site, if your resources are supporting business processes for other sites, okay, welcome. You are starting your global capability center journey, right? Be it supply chain planning, like buying, or accounting support, or engineering change support, let it be anything, right? And that's how NCR started its journey. Before coming to the Mahindra World City ecosystem, we were working out of Puducherry. And at those times, because of the confidence on our manufacturing processes, they asked us to see if we can take up some support processes as well there, starting with the buying process for the global requirements. We had a big advantage of getting good resources there. And that was something which helped us to put together a team, and then we started supporting buying for process for them. Now, over a period of time, NCR opted to shift to Chennai because of various strategic reasons, but the business processes which we started there is still continuing in Puducherry, which is now hosting not just the buying team, we are hosting engineering change control support, part approval process support, then there is some support for analytics, advanced analytics, and in Chennai also we have a small team doing that similar kind of work. We have diversified into not just one location now, multiple locations. For example, in Hyderabad also we have got a big team, and in Gurgaon also. So I believe global capability centers evolution or something like that is not just limited to one geographical location for a company. That's the kind of flexibility technology gives you with respect to availability of resources also. That helps. So slowly, we have seen a historical shift of starting from a back-end process support. This is getting changed into a global capability center where it is a center of excellence supporting business critical activities. Future, as we see it, it will evolve into a global competency center. So there is a thin difference, no blurring difference between these two terms now. For example, in our site, we are running accelerated life tests, and we are giving consultancy services for other global sites for all the products manufactured by NCR, financial products mainly. So it's not just soft processes what we are dealing, it's also hardware process. Going forward, we see that this could evolve into knowledge services as well, slowly. So slowly I can see that India has got strengths, having young, talented, fast learning knowledge pool, who are coming out of educational institutions, ready with fire in their bellies, right? If we groom them well, mold them well, probably if we can adopt them right during the part of their education, we can mold them. So we can convert all these global capability centers into intellectual centers. And slowly, instead of supporting the globe, we can probably own that IPs and then manage those from our centers. So probably, I don't know, you call them a learning center, Takshashilas of the future, whatever it is. So this is the future I see for GCCs, and for this purpose, a good linkage with academia is clearly required, and the policy framework from the government, how they are going to support us. All these things are required. How instead of big companies, already established companies setting up centers here, how anybody can set up a global capability center, how it can be incubated from the startups and then brought into existence, stabilized, those kind of things. So these are some things which I hope through this panel which will be answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. So that was very useful. So we've got an idea now when Mr. Mahesh has talked about his company, and he said global capability center. You might be having a global capability center and not even know that you're running one. So basically that's what it is, that you just provide, it may start in a very, so in our case, it just started with, we need a few accountants to support US. So it started with that, with about, 5 or 10 people just to support US for accounts payable or one specific area. And now it has grown into more than 200 people. So that just, it just sort of creeps and keeps growing because people in USA and Europe find that they have more and more need for such services. So with this now, my question to Mr. Vishnu is this. Traditionally, India wants to look at itself as a manufacturing center and to some extent as a software center. So this manufacturing center, particularly in areas like automotive and pharmaceuticals, now want to go into aerospace and stuff like that. So as well as a software center. So these are the areas the government is focusing on. But this part which is growing, not just growing, but provides high-paid, high-skilled jobs. How do you see that India has an advantage here? First of all, is this an area which we as India should be going into aggressively, like we go into software and aerospace and other things? And what are the advantages that, from your perspective as a government servant, what India has, and what Tamil Nadu has to offer for these kind of GCCs? So over to you, Mr. Vishnu.
The collateral damage of being a government official is that you get the center seat, but you get the toughest questions to face. Anyways, I'm used to it, so I need to take those very, very deep questions. So you've basically put forward three questions or three parallel dialogues. One is that, does India need to look at GCCs in a serious way? Second is, where does Tamil Nadu fit into the scheme of things, which is more relevant to the audience that's here in the discussion? And third, what is the government going to do, bringing all the stakeholders together? So let me just answer it one by one. The first one is, yes, as an investment, let me just tell about my organization. IAS officer is fine, but I think we need to pitch the organization that I represent. I work for Guidance. I'm the MD and CEO of Guidance, and Guidance is the nodal agency for promoting investments. When I say investments, investments above 50 crores of Indian rupees, both foreign as well as domestic investment. That's my mandate very clearly, to bring investments into the state of Tamil Nadu. In this context, looking at the overall geopolitics is important to understand where India pitches in. Every single player, be it manufacturing, services, or agro-processing, today is looking at India as the next best option. The China Plus One strategy is there, out there in the open, in the standard literature. It's been talked about, and being an investment promotion agency, these are something which we get requests on a day-to-day basis, looking at Tamil Nadu as an option. One classic example is a non-leather footwear. I'll come to why it is relevant to GCCs. Over the last year and a half, the global value chain of non-leather footwear, when I say non-leather footwear, it's basically your Adidas, Nike, Reeboks. The entire value chain has shifted from China to India, and specifically Tamil Nadu in a big way. Pouchen, which is the largest supplier for Adidas, we just signed an MOU to set up their biggest unit in Tamil Nadu. And that too, decongesting out from Chennai, it's going to be a little bit down south near Kalakurchi. So this is the kind of global shifting that's happening in the manufacturing sector. Now, how is it relevant for capability centers? When I say the Nikes or Adidas of the world has shifted their manufacturing capability, the next step is their design component. They will find design centers closer to their manufacturing base, in the only condition being that skilled labor is available to that sector. So I think it's a logical conclusion that the moment manufacturing shifts based to India, the states which are conducive for developing the R&D and associated back-end operations also move to that particular space. Now coming to Tamil Nadu, we need to understand Tamil Nadu a little bit nuanced. Our GSDP is around $300 billion US. If you compare it in the global scale, because the game is no longer within states, it's international. We are competing with Philippines, we are competing with Vietnam, we are competing with parts of regions of China, we are competing with Taiwan. These are the spaces that Tamil Nadu is competing. Let's be very clear on that fact. $300 billion US, which means that we are in the top 50 economies in the world. If you just stand alone, take Tamil Nadu as a regional space and economy. Now, putting this into context, there are 4 pillars in which GCCs can grow. Number one being availability of skilled talent. Let me just take my example, my own professional career as an example. I did my engineering from NIT Trichy. I did mechanical and production engineering. I did not go into the manufacturing sector. I went into consulting. I was a financial risk analyst with a company called Aon Corporation. Straight ticket to US, straight out from Trichy, straight to US. Why? Because that's an aspirational. And we are discussing GCC at the right opportune moment for the simple reason that a couple of days before Government of India released the rankings on the top institutions in the country, education institutes, Tamil Nadu leaps and bounds. We are way ahead than any other state in the country. I don't have the exact figures, but top 10 engineering colleges out of the top 100 are in Tamil Nadu, including the best one, which is the IIT Madras. Those stats are out there for anybody's discussion. But the simple point that the demographic dividend, the aspiration of the youth today necessitates the growth of global capability centers or job profiles which match the aspiration. I think that's where more than any other reason we need to invest in GCCs or look at shifting the value chain, the high-end value chain into India and specifically Tamil Nadu. So I think I've answered that question. Now, what is government going to do about it? 20% of India's electronic export today is done by Tamil Nadu. So electronics is one, semiconductor and electronics is some single point sector. Focus strategy is required. We are not going to have, we cannot have the entire sector moving into spaces. But what we are looking at, TN as a strategy is looking at very specific sectors. Electric vehicles is our core competency. We have been the automobile capital. Today we are transitioning into EV capital of the country or EV capital of South Asia, if I may extend it. And so associated GCCs is something which we can definitely look at. Second is high-end R&D in the VLSI and electronic space. Definitely we have a great opportunity because if you look at semiconductor industry today, the global powers which have access to semicon industry is today the actual world powers. Be it Taiwan where maximum production happens, but a large extent of design is still happening in the United States, which Tamil Nadu and India in particular has got a huge, huge potential to diversify. So these are specific niche sunrise sectors where Tamil Nadu is focusing, and as guidance, when we pitch out our state or Tamil Nadu as a best preferred investment destination, these are the strengths we possess. The second after skill is probably the logistics and infrastructure, which again, Tamil Nadu is in a very unique vantage position by being the data center. We are emerging slowly as a data center capital of the country. Every single major data center company is today setting up their operations in and around Chennai. Sirseri is supposed to be the hotspot for data centers as on today. Third is the social infrastructure, which probably Tamil Nadu may have to do slightly better in terms of perception, but I'm sure Chennaiites would vouch for Chennai as the best city to live in. But there's something in terms of perception maybe we can do slightly better in terms of social infrastructure. So we are in the right spot. We are in the right direction. So hopefully the next couple of years we'll see a flurry of expansion in the GCC space, in not only in Chennai, but also tier 2 cities. I have not specifically said, that's worth another discussion on how we develop tier 2 cities as potential GCC centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vishnu. So, yeah, when you talked about social... yeah.
Not often I get the...
So thank you, Mr. Vishnu. So when you talked about social infrastructure, just reminded I have a flat in Khadar Nawaz Khan Road, and I was just saw an article which said that is going to become the nightlife center or the pub center of the 24-hour pub center of Tamil Nadu or Chennai. So yeah, that sounds quite exciting, I'm sure, for everyone who plans to come there. So that was good. So it was very useful. And your talk about China Plus One is also very interesting. Just to share with you, when we started, we had no idea that we are going to have any kind of shared service center. We are as Lincoln Electric. By the way, Lincoln Electric, we don't make anything electrical. So this is again a misnomer, just as NCR was talking about. Just as they were talking about NCR. We make welding. We make welding machines and welding consumables. So basically everything for welding. So when we started, we were a pure manufacturing organization. And then our head office is in Cleveland, Ohio. And so therefore, we were just continuing with manufacturing. And this shared service center, I think in 2015 or something, they thought of setting up in China because China was still sort of people were gung-ho about China at that time, 2014 or 2015, and then it started. Then suddenly one day they said, look, can you put together a team of accountants? We need some accountants to support us for, I don't remember, I think it was something accounts payable or something like that. So we put together a small group of people to support them. And that was how it just started growing from there. And then they said, okay, we're going to have a shared service center. Okay, what's a shared service center? That's also a GCC. Later on, the name changed to GCC, Global Competency, Global Capability Center. Now, incidentally, we also have, so one of the things which we have done in Chennai is we have developed our own Internet of Things system, with which we run our factory. And this system is what is being, with our own developers, our own hardware specialists and so on, and this is what is being deployed in other factories. So this, you can say, is a global competency center, because here we have competencies which are not available in other parts of the globe, as compared to our global capability center, where we have capabilities, where we just employ accountants, SAP professionals, people who are familiar with HRIS, and so on and so forth. So that's how everything is shifted away from China. So the idea of putting up a shared service center or GCC in China is out, and now India is not only the first choice, it's the only choice. I mean, there was talk of, looking at Philippines and Malaysia and all that, but finally it never took off. India, because there are just too many advantages that India has, as Mr. Vishnu pointed out. So with this, I'll now ask PricewaterhouseCoopers, what do you think, Mr. Roja, of GCCs? What do you think is the future of GCCs in India? There are large GCCs, like with the Ford and with Caterpillar and so on. There are others which are smaller, and many of these companies do not look at India as potential GCC material, meaning that do we really want to set up a capability center here? How much are we going to save? What is the advantage? What's the risk that we have? In outsourcing our accounts, insourcing our accounts, in insourcing our, SAP and so on and so forth. So given that, particularly if we want to talk about organizations which are setting up their manufacturing here, what would you say as far as, how you would sort of urge them to, or recommend to them that, this India and Tamil Nadu are the ideal places to set up this kind of center, that it is worth setting up this kind of center, and this is the place to set it up?
So thanks, Sundaram, for this question. And I think I just really liked, Vishnu, the way you answered those tough questions. And the idea is just to put across, maybe I will just throw some light first on the evolution of GCCs, just to, give that perspective, because a lot of time I just was sitting outside and somebody said that let's go to A&D session because ye wala session back office wala session hai. So I thought, okay, let me just first clear some of these, that how GCCs has evolved, from let's say, so we all know about this liberalization in 91, that it all started off, right? When the global companies actually started moving. There were many global companies already operating in India, but for various reasons. But if I look at it, where it started, it's more likely started from there. And initial between 90 and 2000, if you look at it, what it was that most of these companies were coming into India on a back of either a Tata or some big conglomerate. They were not coming on their own largely. But Y2K, what it proved at that time, and I was that time in TCS, and I used to visit a lot that time in Chennai, Sholingnallur, and a lot of offices that we had here. And we used to call Y2K factory those days. And the reason Y2K factory was primarily because the job was simple line change coding, and you had just tons of it, and you were charging it on a run rate basis. But after the Y2K went by, then this came this whole about that how the software, this people need to upscale themselves, got into learning Java, and SAP became a hot skill. And after that, this whole .com boom, and then, so you see the stepwise growth. But what it eventually proved to the global companies that this is a place where certainly they can set up their delivery centers. Look at it that way. So to the earlier point, it was seen as a delivery center. So that's why the terminology those days was used as captives, not GIC, not GCC. People never used to use this word. And then what we realized is as this started moving and the numbers started increasing, so this was the phase when you were just doing consolidation of the delivery, right, to put it across. And post 2010, that is after that the whole meltdown of multiple banks happened, etc., there was a shift that the cost pressures started really building up. But at the same time also the tech world was going through a different, so semiconductor industry started booming down. So there was almost all the semiconductor companies were in the bad shape. So that was the time when they're looking at that, where do they look at for that next gen, technology to come out. They started looking at India, obviously. So India had proven by then that they were the tech hub, they were the best talent, scale of and skill, etc. But what was not coming to the earlier point, what Sundaram said is, they were not seeing you as the owner of the technology. They were not seeing you as the owner of IP. They were seeing you as more on the right side of the curve, which we say typically left to right, from origination, ideation, when you do all that stuff. You were not parting to that. You were parting largely to the right side when the product is largely designed. You are there to either support or you're doing test. So some of those activities, which was seen as a back-end or low-end work. That's how it was defined. What has changed in last 5 to 7 years is what is actually the GCC. So how captives became GIC and how GICs became GCC. And now we are not calling it GCC anymore. You will hear very soon we are talking about transformation hubs. The reason is because I can safely tell you, I have been now in this industry for 26 years, initial part 20 years. Till 2005, I was more global. But post 2005, I started focusing on India. So I have been in India, focusing on India business. And spent time with TCS, 4 years with IBM, last 12 with Accenture, last 4 months that I have joined as partner and GCC lead at PwC. So when I look at this, I have seen the companies coming into, evolving, how they have grown, how they have changed. So when I talk about later in the session that how these organizations from being a capability or a capacity or a skill provider has now actually become the owner of the technology, owner of the IP, and owner of the product. So today I can safely tell you that GCCs are being set up to the point that how does India, pull this? India is already pulling it. There's no second thought about it. But what else we need to do differently from India, that India becomes now the outsourcer versus the insourcer. So if you look at it, that is what is the discussion of our generation as we talk about that next 10 years, given the generation has changed. 20 years ago, now my son or my daughter who is 20 years old doesn't want to talk about the skills that we were learning then. Now they want to talk about AI, ML, they want to talk about the new age skills. So they are looking for jobs with the new age skills, which is actually available in India because in most of the other countries, that supply is limited. So if companies wants to evolve, they have to rely on high-end technologies, and that high-end technology, who has it, who will deliver it, the skill lies here, the people lie here, the mass lies here. So to the point now coming to relating to the point Vishnu said earlier, that if you have the best education facility, right? So clearly you're already attracting that. So there is no way that you will not see that change happening. So semiconductors seen as one of the highest critical side of the product line, right? Aerospace and defense, semiconductor, these are those where you cannot do mistakes, right? Because the lifeline of your, whether it is a med tech or not normal, your automobile, your aerospace, the chips that involved is the heart of it, right? So if that goes wrong, you're done. So basically what you're talking about, the high-end technology requires that high-end knowledge base, which is lying here, so you're obviously there. Where I want to highlight now, come back to from a Tamil Nadu perspective, and this is, I just spent two days with NASSCOM GCC conclave we had in Bangalore. And we were hearing various people and a lot of who are very mature GCCs. And I stopped using the word captive 5 years ago. One of the global vice president of the product company came and said, I was just talking to him. He said, Rajesh, please stop calling us captives. Because captive sounds very derogatory, right? So we don't want to be seen my peers. They are peers. They are the ones who are the ones that we are shaking hand and doing the job. So when you look at it in context of that, what was discussed in Bangalore was that GCCs are no more the back-end work. Now they are on the left side of it. So a lot of new product development is happening in India. A lot of new designs are happening in India. There are products end-to-end, including manufacturing. Now that is the big thing. And this is where the Tamil Nadu part comes in picture. Because today, if you go back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, the GCCs which were entering into Tamil Nadu were backed by manufacturing. So our manufacturing was the first one, followed by the R&D center. But it is changing. If you look at AstraZeneca, right? It was the vaccine design, 2,800 people onboarding in no time, and bringing it was because of people, the skill available here. So what is another thing changing is the functional knowledge. So earlier we were known as skilled guys. Oh, you know Java, you know SAP, you know this, you know that. But now what has happened is people have started believing on a functional knowledge that your aircraft will be built, manufactured in India. C295 is going to be manufactured in India. So the next time when you see some of these flights are going to take off, they are going to be manufactured in India. So we were just manufacturing earlier the doors, which was not part of the heart of the aircraft. But that's going to change, right? So this is where you are seeing the biggest change, that functional knowledge is getting built. Your technical knowledge, technical know-how has increased significantly. So there is a very significant shift that is happening. So you cannot be now the backseater, you are the front. And why, when you compare it to some of the other centers, it is not that we should be seeing in silo now. In fact, we should be seeing as a global citizen, right? And this is like to the point what you just mentioned about $300 billion, right? If you look at it, it started with somebody global coming to us. I think it is also point that we also go global. We also adopt, because there is an ecosystem when you create and make it global. That is when your sturdiness in this business will remain. Otherwise, you will be localized, not globalized. So this is something that with GCCs are actually have proven that this is how the world has changed, right? So this is where I will maybe take a pause and stop, and bring a lot of other discussions when we talk about it. And maybe any other questions that you may have, I will just take it up later.
Thank you. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Roja. So that was very, very useful. That you're talking from the left side to the right side of the manufacturing spectrum. You know, that goes back to that old debate, which was there for some time, which is Apple a manufacturer? Is Apple a manufacturer? They don't have any factories. They don't do any manufacturing. But it's believed that manufacturing is not just about taking materials, chopping them up, transforming them, and putting it out. It's the entire end-to-end. When you say you're a manufacturer, you're the one who's actually designing the product. It's not just the design of the product, but it's also taking customer inputs into the redesign and improvement of the product, improvement of the process. So that's when you're truly a manufacturer. Otherwise, you're not a manufacturer, you're a subcontractor. So a lot of the work in India up till now has been, you can say, subcontracting, but then we are moving towards the manufacturing stage as far as design is concerned. And here, as far as GCCs are concerned, we are primarily looking at design, but there are a lot of other areas where GCCs can expand as well. Now we go to Mr. Sitaraman. Mr. Sitaraman, can you please share with us what has been your experience of GCCs and with your GCCs, and what is the driver behind it actually starting, and what's been your experience so far with it?
Sure. Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. First of all, I thank you, IACC, to giving this opportunity to be as a panel member for this discussion. Babcock Power, it's not the original Babcock which you think which is there in India as Thermax, Babcock. It has nothing to do with that. I just wanted to clarify that. It is a totally an American company based out of the US. And we have 6 manufacturing facilities in the US. And then they were growing. They are pretty strong in the US. The US market is, they have captured most of the US market in the field of engineering. Again, I would like to clarify that we are into the hands dirty business like fabrication, welding, machining, and so on. So it's more on the heat exchanger fabrication, the pressure vessel fabrication, the boiler fabrication, the condenser fabrication, feed water heaters. These are the fired heaters. These are the key products that we manufacture in the US. And today, with the fossil fuel getting reduced, the demand for fossil fuel is slowly depleting in the US market also. So there's a lot of projects coming up with conversions, that is conversion to gas-based, natural gas-based power plants. So the existing power plants are still existing, and so they convert it into gas-based. They use on a multiple basis. They retrofit the whole power plant, and where we get involved into the design and retrofit design aspects, burner modifications, and so on. Now, coming to the Chennai operations that we started, it started off with in 2017 with just 3 people. Babcock Power APAC was formed in 2017 with 3 people in a residence of one of my managing director's house. Later on, it was an incubation period for about a year or so, and then they slowly said we need to get this engineer, that engineer, draftsman, and so on, supporting the US operation. So like Mr. Oja was saying, it was more of a back office support, basically drafting and sending drawings where, The cost of labor in the US is, it's significantly high, and this gets a cost advantage. It happened that way, and slowly and steadily. From 3 people in 2017, today we are 51 in 2023. And there's a big plan of, growing this to a number of, say, 200. That's the plan. And we are very optimistic of getting this number, because the amount of work that is coming from the US to India is every day. Every day, designs are being sent here for work. And what we have done over the last 3 years is that we have not only kept ourselves as an engineering support function for the US operations, we have also started qualifying and auditing and qualifying various suppliers in India, which makes us basically material suppliers, like tubes and forgings and castings and so on. So these are now sourced from India for the US market. So there, where we, the APAC office, plays a very vital role in qualifying suppliers and expediting those supplies for the US operations. So from there, from the back office support, we went into a sort of a talent pool strength. And from talent pool strength, we said that a couple of the products from the US engineering itself got transferred to India, where we became the leaders in that knowledge center. So we became more of a knowledge center base for those products, like fire heaters and heat exchangers. Now from there, like Mr. Sundaram has said, that the finance also has grown. The finance team has grown here. The IT support has grown here. Now we are supporting the IT for all of Asia here from this office. So having said that, so it's more relevant to be called as a global capability center. It could be called as a competency center, but now I think it's more capability center. So this is basically because of the low cost of resource here, both in terms of human resource as well as infrastructure cost is less compared to the other parts of the world. And we do have an office in Thailand, but Chennai stands an advantage because of the language. Generally, the engineering students come out with a minimum knowledge of spoken English, spoken and written English. This has an advantage for the US operations, and this has actually helped us in getting their confidence in building up the strength here and putting it as a global capability center. And the whole thing transpires into, at the end of the day, the corporate gets advantage on cost. So that's what I would say. And this is a fine example of the topic that we are discussing as a global capability center. Thank you. If anything you want to ask.
Thank you. That was very useful, Mr. Sitaraman. So now we've had a full perspective of what are the capability centers, how those capabilities have been set up, what kind of experiences companies have had. Then we've had PwC talking about how they see this evolving in the future, and we also have Mr. Vishnu from the government telling us how the government sees this and how it's going to be supported going forward. So with this, I will ask for questions from the audience. So yes, yeah, over to you, ma'am. So we need. Okay, actually, you're audible. You can pass the mic around, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Vaishnavi. I run an engineering design firm, predominantly mechanical and mechatronics. True to yours, mine's a startup. We're about 5 years old, but I've seen my employee strength go from 5 to 35, purely because firms that are based, the bigger firms have started routing their engineering design work to us. So it's from Make in India, it's design in India to Make in India. For a startup like mine that's 35, I want to become 350. what does the government have to support, to enable us to get access to all of these orders that you say that are there that they're wanting to outsource to India? That's to you, sir. And to Nagarajan, sir, any inputs on the processes and the protocols that firms like us, from working with MSMEs to today taking orders from L&T Defense, say for example, I've said some process, but I'm sure firms in the US might have a higher requirement of process controls when they outsource. So can you share some insights on that? So that's 2 questions.
Yeah, so thank you. So one thing, as you said, moving from make in India to design in India. So as I said, they are both 2 sides of the same coin. And now since, Mr. Vishnu is used to taking tough questions, he can take this one.
So that's why I started my first sentence was a disclaimer that I look at investments greater than 50 crores, work with guidance. But however, I mean, since I'm part of the government, I think I'm bound to answer your questions. There are 2 tracks in which government of Tamil Nadu, this is over and above whatever the ecosystem government of India is trying to create in the country, not in the space of manufacturing alone, but in various dimensions. I would restrict myself on the government of Tamil Nadu. There are 2 parallel tracks. One is over the last year and a half, there has been a tremendous growth in the number of startups being registered, number one. I mean, we need to start with some metrics. Number of registered startups, when I say number of registered startups with the DPIIT. Now, it has gone up exponentially. I don't have the right figures as of now because I'm not in that domain, but however, we have seen the highest exponential growth over the last year and a half, point number 1. Point number 2, the second track that is going outside the startup ecosystem is that there are certain policy levers which we are leveraging. Number 1 being the EV policy which we launched. Now, relevant policy for you would be the research and development policy. I request you to kindly go through the R&D policy where we have brought down the threshold of eligibility. Earlier, you had to be eligible for any kind of incentive mechanism. You had to have a company which is more than 500 crores turnover and large investments and large employment generating. But we understand that the government understands that design and development and R&D, these are spaces, very niche areas where you may not have large companies alone. Even a small lean organization can be a global player in the R&D space. So kindly request you to go through the R&D space, which could be very much relevant for you. Since your headcount is 35 plus 15, and then you become the threshold eligible for the R&D policy. Our count says it's 50 is the employment limit and 50 crores of investment that we can see how to work around it. So kindly go through the R&D policy. The moment you're eligible in those thresholds, look at where you fit in the first track, which is the startup ecosystem track, or the R&D space. These are specific answers to your question. I can go on and on in rounds about how the economy is going and all that, but I hope I've answered your question too. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, to answer your question on specific, if I'm not wrong, can you just elaborate what you wanted actually? What I understood was that you were looking at some specific talent.
Process.
No.
How to attract clients? Okay. So basically, let me clarify, we don't have direct clients here. Okay, we are not facing client-facing office here. Our client-facing is in the US. So we work for the US. But however, for certain products which have come to India, we indirectly become the client-facing office here. Now, because of the talent pool that we have acquired here, it has become, it is easy. And the other thing is the communication part is very comfortable. The US management is very comfortable in asking us to directly deal with the customer. They have no inhibitions. To get into that level of confidence, a lot of work had to be done because we had a lot of training programs internally organized for the entire group, both in terms of soft skills, spoken English, so on, and written, spoken, all those things. Because though our curriculum is English-based, but still there is a wide variation in the way we communicate with international partners. So that's a very key aspect that we had to correct ourselves. We are still correcting, it's not over, and it's an ongoing process. And the other thing what we could take a risk, I mean, I would say it was a risk, we started recruiting graduate engineer trainees and then trained them in a specific field. So for example, we trained them in FEA. So FEA was an area where we developed our strength. CFD is one area we developed our strength. And now the entire US operation is looking at Chennai as a place to go for FEA or CFD analysis. I mean, that's the way we have, gone ahead. And I think it's worked, and I hope it will continue. And these are small changes that we are bringing into the process to bring in, making ourselves into the acceptance level from the corporate level.
Ma'am, I will also try to add to that. You need to use the networking opportunities like this here. I have met a lot of people here who provide services to connect clients who are expecting some services like you, from people like you, right? That is probably one method. Then there are educational institutions who are setting up startup centers, R&D centers, incubation centers and all. If we can partner with some of the institutions and where many clients come there looking for services, probably that might help you. So you need to use different methods probably.
Yeah, please go ahead. I think that mic isn't working. Yeah, now I think it's working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Vaishali and I'm a company secretary, and I work for the firm called Simply Biz, where we provide compliance and legal services to small and medium GCCs. What we have seen that, GCCs have a very clear preference of Telangana over Tamil Nadu. So my question to Mr. Vishnu is, what is the Tamil Nadu government trying to do in order to attract investments? Because when you see Telangana, it's at an exponential growth, it looks.
Don't feel bad about asking that question because he's used to tough questions, as I said.
I think, again, collateral damage of taking the... See, I think, you made two statements. Number one is that Telangana is having more GCC centers, and number two is that attracting more investments. But you never said any numbers for that, okay? You never said any facts for that. That's what again, the perception is also quite important. Over the last couple of months, we had the highest 100% FDI investments in Tamil Nadu. I'm not sure how many of you have seen that, but we had Mitsubishi Corporation investing 2,000 crores, 100% FDI, not a joint venture, 100% FDI. I don't think this has happened in any of the states. So again, it's a perception game. Maybe we have to do better in perception. Probably that's the learning point from there. No, but then you never quoted any facts. You have not given any quotes on number of investments in terms of FDI. You have not given number of export numbers, or nobody talks about this. I can vouch that over the last couple of months, what we have seen is a spurt of unprecedented shifting of large companies shifting base. When I say, there was a headline which came in Business Standard that non-leather footwear companies take the Beijing-Chennai flight. When I say the entire value chain of Adidas is shifting to Tamil Nadu, it's not a small thing. You're moving an entire sector, which is a very tectonic shift that we have taken. Now, coming to a specific question of GCC, we have to understand that GCC itself are of various tiers. Okay. Now, Telangana, probably the statement that you made could be because of the T hub, which you have quite often in the news, the Telangana hub. But then again, Tamil Nadu is going to have the fintech city soon. So that's going to, so the single demarcating feature of having GCC is the availability of grade A spaces, lease spaces, because ultimately that's one single first push factor. And over the last week, if you've been following the press reports, there's going to be an unprecedented spurt in grade A space availability in Chennai over the next year and a half. Coimbatore has been graded as the best tier 2 city for setting up GCC. So there's a lot of traction that's happening. You'll have to wait and see for the action to come in the next year or so. We're having the Global Investment Meet coming up in Jan 10th and 11th, 2024. So you'll have some surprises soon. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a perception issue there that Hyderabad is the happening place, and that's really what is happening. Perhaps, as Mr. Vishnu said, perception is more important than the truth. So that's that's. Yeah, the grass is greener on the other side.
Move out from Hyderabad and go to the rural parts. We have got Trichy, Coimbatore, Tirunelveli, Madurai, you name it. Move out from Chennai and look for what the growth of Tamil Nadu is. I've been a district, I spent 4.5 years of my life in Tirunelveli, deep down south. And I can tell you the quality of life outside the tier 2 and tier 3 cities is far better than any comparable state, which is why consistently we have been number 2 after Kerala in every single human development indices. So I think we need to look at the universe in a different world altogether. Move out from Hyderabad, go to tier 2 city anywhere in Telangana. I've named all the districts in down south, all the 38 districts. Thank you. I've spent 4.5 years of my life in Tirunelveli. Not moving out from that district, I don't belong to that place.
We employ almost 2,000 people.
That question is to me.
Taking,
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
we employ 2,000 people here in manufacturing, whereas almost 1,000 people we employ in Hyderabad for the support services or R&D, research and development. Basically, couple of things. What even today, I mean, there is no comparison. We don't want to make a comparison, but simple things are like should not become a contradicting, but the labor code, which was announced. Probably we expected, it's okay, we expected not in appropriate version, but probably with some modification, it will come to support the service industry, particularly the shift timings, employment of ladies. Like you said, actually, the space provision is priority for service industries, for GCC. These are all certain things, actually, if it is, I don't know, really some policy.
No, point well taken. I think traditionally Tamil Nadu has been a strong, mature manufacturing base. Our focus has always been manufacturing, and more close to 25% of our GSDP is from the manufacturing sector. It has its own pluses. You saw the resilience post-COVID. We were one of the fastest states to come back, rebound back, partly because our shielding from external shocks. Our manufacturing sector is very, very solid and not bound to any global economic fluctuations to a large extent. So yeah, point taken. Labor code is something which Government of India is also working on. Hopefully we should see some modifications in that. Point well taken.
Yeah, good evening, sir. My name is Arun, and I represent Precision Group of companies. We've also started a new startup called Factory Hub, which is basically a gig platform for all engineering skills. So anyone who wanted to be an independent engineer can always sign up with us and be an engineer. And so this trend, we've seen it since COVID has seen everything. We've seen work from home happening. We see engineering centers and offices working for the US and Europe. So any data on the market size before considering global capability centers, sir?
So that might be a question for PwC. So you're off the hook at this time, Mr. Vishnu.
So market size, when you look at it from the business perspective, today we are talking about overall GCC market as such is around $43 billion, 40 to 45 billion. But when you look at it in context of what is addressable to you, right, or addressable in context of which business that you are part of. So this has various segments. So when you look at somebody just thinks about GCC only in IT context, somebody just thinks about R&D. So when you look at, you distribute the business, and earlier to point what Vaishnavi was asking. So you look at engineering part, in engineering R&D constitutes almost 17 to 18% basic straightforward of this portion of the business. Then there is what we call design to build and build to print, right? So which is basically there is a certain portion, what just now I heard from Mr. Nagarajan talking about that, the 2D to 3D plus now there's FEA, CFD, these things which is coming in. So this is a significant portion, again relates to the R&D portion, But sometimes R&D is now seen into platform engineering as one R&D, engineering, which is mechanical engineering as a different segment. Now when you look at the new segments coming in, so earlier what was happening was the semiconductor industry came in first, right? Then followed by the financial services, which became big base. Then we started seeing aerospace and defense, and then everybody. But what we have seen a big change is pharma industry. So pharma earlier was known as only medical transcriptionist. But today when you look at pharma, what you just seen, vaccine developed, designed from India, drug discovery happening in India. So each of these has a component of engineering. Now engineering scale is changing. Now there's a GCC segment. Earlier I just heard about legal compliance. Now this is one segment which is now again not related directly to GCCs in many ways. But look at the legal compliance center of excellence getting set up with many of the companies, because like engineering skills, the taxonomy skills, the tax related skills, indirect tax, direct tax, whether you talk about legal, contracting, you talk about any of those segments which are core function of any business, because without that you will not run. Compliance is core function, right? So when you look at it, there are not many people technically qualified who understand it globally. But that quantity again lies significantly big in India. So when you look at, this is one area which a lot of people just look at, that engineering is only the core, right? Because engineering always was seen that way by our parents, that engineering earlier you are the best, right? Now we are looking at engineering in that segment, that this is a new area which is opening up all these parallel segments. So this is why this is changing. So earlier, the pace of growth from a GCC's perspective was, let's say, going at 5-6%. Now it is moving towards 10-11% CAGR. So that's the change. So we have seen just the post-pandemic, this has even more changed. So to your area that you're looking at, there are a lot of smaller GCCs which are niche into their area. Just say a mobile app development, period. They are just doing AI, ML, just generative AI, that they're doing nothing else, right? So they have set up, a lot of them are not even known to people, not that they are into the NASCOM books, or not that they are known into the state books. They are there. They just started with 5, 10, 15, but they are GCCs in their own rights. So they are looking at these gigs where they are seeing that, okay, let me come, instead of signing these multiple contracts and getting bounded by that, let's try to do it in a more equal to equal basis. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, kind of. And my question to you, Vishnu sir, is what do you see the possibilities of even second-tier cities becoming GCCs? Because majority of our engineers mostly are, the population comes from a lot of second-tier and third-tier cities. And I don't think so Chennai or Mumbai or Delhi going 15-20 years will have the capacity to hold this kind of a population or urbanization.
So what we see over the last few months, especially post-COVID recovery, is that there is a good traction, especially for Coimbatore is emerging. There is a lot of real estate grade A space development happening. It's function of good quality spaces. That's number one. Connectivity is de facto there. Madurai, I'm not sure how many of you know, Honeywell has had one of its leading technology centers in Madurai. This was long back, and now they're expanding. CTS's second largest campus is in Coimbatore. So again, Tamil Nadu, again, there's probably these are not facts which is known much. TCS's biggest campus is in Chennai, worldwide, is in Chennai. So these are some of the facts that we need to reiterate again and again. But straight answer to your question, we will see a lot of GCC or similar operations happening in Coimbatore, Madurai, and Trichy for sure. Especially since government is now setting up what are called as neo-tidal parks, which are again spaces curated ideally for GCCs. So because there may not be a direct push from the private sector, so government is pitching up for tier 2 and even tier 3 cities.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And any upskilling program that is being done towards universities, because we see that we are producing a lot of engineers, but then the quality of engineers is not up to global standards.
Yeah. So recently the Nan Mudalvan scheme, which is what is the largest skilling program in India, is launched in Tamil Nadu. Now what we have done is a minor tweaking in the higher education sector. There's one mandatory course which has been included as part of the Nan Mudalvan, because everybody knows that industry academia mismatch is going on from the time I was in college and before that also. I don't think we'll ever be able to bridge that gap. That quintessential question will forever be there, whether we can bridge the gap or not. But what we have done specifically from the government side is that we have added one mandatory course, which could be left to the choice of the student, which are curated courses. For example, if you're a computer science or a electronics graduate, a mandatory course on AI/ML, which is again offered by the industry. For example, Infosys is on board Nan Mudalvan portal. So all these courses are not academic related, but purely offered by the industries. And we see a lot of traction from the industries. Recently, we had a roundtable with IIT Madras for pitching a special curriculum for electric vehicles. Because the entire IC engine that we learned in first year of mechanical engineering is going to go for a toss. Because there is no engine in your EV. It's only a battery and a motor. So whatever IC engine piston we learned is going to be redundant, which means the entire mechanical engineering course is going to go for a toss. There's a need for a massive revamp in the curriculum. What we have done is we have called 20 to 30 CEOs in the EV space, sat down with IIT Madras. We are discussing with Coursera for it, for coming up curated courses for EV. So again, what is required, sector-specific pitches. This is being undertaken. And slowly infusing into a curriculum is a slightly challenging proposition. But bridge school, bridge course, and a finishing school concept is what will work in the Indian context.
I will try to add to that a bit. I can vouch for Tier 2 cities because even though we shifted our manufacturing to Chennai, our GC center is still in Puducherry. Now, in order to leverage this, now we have technology, so that is not a problem. Communications, everything, internet, everything is there everywhere. Availability of resources, yes, it is there, right? Now, what is additionally required is a good partnership with the educational institutions to ensure that the candidates coming out of those areas other than the cities are industry ready. Probably the industrial clusters in those areas should work with academia to ensure that during their educational process itself, they should be allowed to participate in these internship programs or something like that. So while they learn on the job and they continue their education, those kind of things. So they will have that confidence when they come out of the industry, which is what industries will be looking out for. So I don't know, let's take an example. The Tirupur industry, right? So you have got a lot of textile manufacturers there. They will have some kind of skills that required to study which kind of fabric is to be sold in which areas, what sells and all, giving them consultancy, those kind of things. They cannot, they don't have to travel until Chennai or establish a center here. They can just go to the nearby academia and establish a global capability center there, recruit people from there, train them, give them expertise into their trade, so that by the time they come out, the students will have access to technical knowledge as well as the industry knowledge, and they will be able to better contribute to their GCCs. So establishing GCCs other than the major cities in Tier 2 or those kind of things has to take a multi-pronged approach like this. Early introduction into work, continuing education, or whatever it is. I have seen a program called HCL's Tech B. I'm not sure any of you have heard. After completing your +2, they allow for you to enroll into that program. They train you for 1 year and they put into work, and in parallel they allow you to pursue your education. So there are several initiatives like that. So you don't have to be highly qualified to get into that kind of areas and all, right? So these are the ways we need to think. We need to break the barriers and we need to think differently in order to establish this.
Okay, so I have now one last question. There'll be a time for only one more question. So yes, yeah. But before that, just to answer, just to say a little bit about this. We have recently we've tied up with one it's institution which does education for welding. So what we do is we teach practical welding to welding engineers. So these people are people who are going for a certificate for international welding engineers. So in our company, we teach them practical hands-on welding as well as all, not just the theoretical aspects, but the practical aspects of welding. Having said that, in a lighter vein, when I addressed this group, I did tell them that one thing you guys can be very happy about is that you can be sure that at 5 years from now, AI is not going to take your job, which is not something you can say for a lot of other jobs, which is the important factor that we have to keep in mind when we are upskilling.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Good evening. I'm Selvam. I'm the Tirumudivakam Industrial Estate Manufacturing Association. I'm the secretary there. My question to the panel, the technology changes is happening very fast. And adaptation of the technology changes, MNCs, immediately they're picking up and changing to their requirement. But adopting the technology changes, especially for the MSMEs, they are finding it very difficult. So how the MNC companies in India can support the MSMEs in India or Chennai, collaborate in terms of the capability, the global capabilities enter?
Not you for sure.
So I can just answer that with an example, right? So when you look at ISRO, I'm sure we all know, right? So ISRO was probably one of the pioneers in this to take the ecosystem along, train them for years, not months, not weeks, years. So today when you look at ISRO launching every satellite, there are tons of MSMEs whose work goes on to every satellite that gets launched. And this is an effort of years together. Look at industry-wise. So this is where, while we all say the global capability centers or the global MNCs are the first one as, taking the high-end technology as, start point. They are literally the start point, not just in India, but globally as well. So for a global company also, because that technology or the technologists sit in India, that is how it is happening. But what is also has to be understood is that since this ecosystem starts, it is a time that it takes to, just grow down. But when you look at manufacturing related technology, so this is where the ecosystem part comes in picture, where obviously the government role is a very, very important play, that how when a company sets in, and we had this offset policy from aerospace and defense perspective, very similar, not necessarily called as offset policy, but very similar, where you say you want to set up a company, you want to bring a product, create an ecosystem that will deliver that product from India, maybe if not today, but down the line, 5 years, 6 years, 2 years, that the technologists start coming in from the local ecosystem. So this is where it starts, and this is how it is happening. So I think it is evolving. It's not that it is not happening, but maybe in the areas that you're looking into, you have to just look at other industries where it has already happened.
Government is party to it. I think I'll quickly answer to your question. See, there's one concept which we are currently working on, which is called the Advanced Manufacturing Hub. You rightly pointed out that MNCs have an easier adoption, especially to ESG goals and adoption of Industry 4.0 and whatever is happening across the world. They have a faster adoption rate. Now, how can it be diffused to the MSME and other sectors? One option that we are working out is bring together a stakeholder of large corporations and MSMEs in sharing the resources, especially in terms of technology transfer. Whatever is possible, not every company would be willing to part with their proprietary technology, but shared resource center. Second is centers of excellence in manufacturing and allied sector. There's already one done by TITCO. There's already one IT&T hub which was recently launched for the IT sector. So these are spaces which we are working on. It's easier said than done because this requires the cooperation of various stakeholders. Government can attempt to bring as an umbrella organization, but at the end of the day, it's the vendor ecosystem and the OEM players together that creates it, the trust and the overall ecosystem, but government is working on it. There is already fair bit of traction that's happening in evolved sectors. For example, the Mahindra World City or the old Sipcot industrial estates. There's some kind of a synergy that's already happening. But how to adopt it across sectors, across sizes is something which we need to work together in understanding better adoption.
So just to add to that, just one of the things maybe Mr. Vishnu didn't mention is that, we Lincoln Electric are partnering with Guidance on promoting Industry 4.0 for MSMEs, specifically for MSMEs. That's a program that we have undertaken. We've already taken, a few sessions on this with a number of MSMEs. Then we've had MSMEs for factory visits where Internet of Things is actually being deployed so people can actually practically see what is happening. We also brought to that forum people who can support them in going forward with Industry 4.0. So there are initiatives like that on this front, and that's something which is ongoing. So it's, as I said, there are many different answers. So with this, it's now, it'd be nice to continue this discussion forever, but I now have to bring this session to a close. So with this, I thank all the panelists who have participated in this very active discussion. And I thank the audience for some very incisive questions, listening patiently as well as some very incisive questions. And with that, yeah, I now would like to bring this session to a close. Savita, anything to add?
So much for that excellent session, and I think it was quite an eye-opener. So we hope to see more and more GCCs set up. If I'm not mistaken, the number roughly is 1,500 right now for India, which has passed from 500. So it would be, I think, quite amazing if India is able to set itself as a go-to place as far as GCC is concerned. So moving to the best part, which is to thank each one of you for holding the session, and a session post-lunch is always hard. So, Mr. Sundaram, if I may request you to hand the memento to each one of them. May I call upon you to hand the memento to Mr. Vishnu, IAS MD and CEO, Guidance, Tamil Nadu. To Mr. V. Mahesh, Executive Director, Manufacturing Operations, NCR Corporation, India. To Mr. Nagarajan Sitaraman, Head Quality, Babcock Power, APAC Private Limited. To Mr. Rajesh Ojha, Partner and GIC, GCC Market Segment Leader, PwC. And I have the pleasure, Mr. Sundaram, Managing Director, South Asia Lincoln Electric Company Limited.
Thank you, sir.